Good evening. My name's James Stanger on a cold Australian winter's evening. This video is about a new simplified warming process for vitrified human embryos. It's based on a publication that came out recently in RBMO. It's called The Simplified Warming of Vitrified Human Embryos, Comprehensive Analysis of Diverse Morphological Qualities and Developmental Stages by a group of Japanese authors. And the highlights, if you want to do for 1 quick minute, then move, which I hope you don't, because I think you should wait till the end for my comments. Embryo warming can be simplified as a two-step or one-step procedure from the current three steps. Simplified warming protocols are as effective regardless of blastocyst characteristics. The simplified warming protocols are also effective for all cleavage stage embryos. And the simplified procedures reduce handling time without compromising clinical outcomes. And the author's conclusions was that the simplified one or two-step warming protocols are effective for vitrified human embryos regardless of the developmental stage, morphological quality, or day of blastulation. Surgeon vitrification involves putting the embryo into a very tiny volume of highly concentrated vitrification solution, which is quite toxic if it's in there for too long. So when it's basically vitrification involves the rapid cooling and warming of embryos to avoid ice crystal damage, and as occurs in slow cooling methodology. But the problem is the vitrification solutions are very, very toxic. And so in this cartoon, the normal process for thawing embryos is done on a very tiny straw, like a small cane, and the embryos are thawed into a thawing solution, and they're washed off the cane into a thawing solution. After 1 minute, they're allowed to equilibrate for 3 minutes, then placed in a dilute solution, and then containing half the warming solution and a buffer. And then there's three couple of minute washes just to wash all the thawing solution out before it goes to culture media. And so the background here is that embryo culture preservation protocols were established more than 3 decades ago for vitrification, and various devices and protocols have been designed to improve the efficiency of IVF labs. However, there is little and limited studies on embryo warming protocols and improvements that have yet to be established. That is, there was an initial process that was developed by Cato, etc., and people have stuck to that and it seems to be okay, but this is a new one to suggest it can be done a lot quicker. So in background, recently, several research groups have reported that simplifying the warming process did not affect embryo viability. A previous study found that warming protocols with multiple and single solutions had comparable post-warming survival rates in blastocyst stage embryos. Another study showed that a simplified warming protocol did not reduce embryo survival, but instead increased pregnancy rates after embryo transfer. You can get all this information from the original article. This is the URL. Simplifying the warming process of vitrified embryos is expected to reduce the workload of embryologists, and these reports overturn the concept of embryo warming and improve the efficiency of IVF labs. Well, it's very good. Some of the very early work done, this is work done in 2025, looking at the one step, also by Japanese authors. And this study looked at what does one-step warming, what they call OW, one-step warming, washing. A simplified embryo warming protocol did that adversely affect survival and development potential in cleavage and blastocysts? And the answer was one-step washing showed no detrimental effects on survival and development potential compared to the three-stage standard washing for cleavage and blastocyst stage embryos. There was another one done in 2021, by American authors, also showing that blastocysts that were warmed using thawing media from Fujifilm blastocysts were frozen on day 5 and donated to research, were randomly warmed in either the ultrafast 1 minute in thawing solution or the standard warming method of 1 minute in thawing solution, 4 minutes in dilute solution, and 8 minutes in washing solution. The embryos were evaluated for survival directly after warming and re-expansion after 24 hours. So these embryos were not transferred. And they showed a total of 21 blastocysts were randomized, 39 to fast and 32 to normal. And there was no difference in the initial survival between ultrafast and standard warming, 100%, 100%. After 24 hours in culture, there was 100% survival of the rapid warming and 96 of the standard process. And There's one more paper published just recently, also by Cato. You're looking at standard one-step warming techniques. This is the reference you should go back and look at if you want, if you haven't already done this, to actually work out what's been done. The question here is, what are the re-expansion rates and clinical outcomes obtained when employing a one-step warming technique using 3 commercially available media, thawing solution in vitrified blasters, and how do they compare to the standard multi-step warming technique? And the conclusions, as you may have already anticipated, the one-step warming resulted in better re-expansion and clinical outcomes than multi-step warming, and one-step warming is equally effective with the 3 commercially available brands of thawing solutions tested. And these were Jerry, one-step, and I think they're both Japanese ones. So the methodology, I won't go through that. Basically, the washing technique. I don't think I'll go through. You can follow that. Go to this article itself and read it. But basically, the one-step warming, the embryos were only rinsed for thawing solution for 1 minute. Following completion of the warming treatment for each protocol, the embryos were rinsed 5 times in one-step media, which is basically their culture media, and then embryo culture was performed using Vitrolife or embryoscope and with a vitrolite slide culture dish. So let's get back to the paper in hand. So simplified warming of vitrified human embryos, comprehensive analysis of diverse morphological qualities and developmental stages. The question is, all the other ones are basically the same. Is a simplified 1 or 2-step warming protocol effective and safe for vitrified human embryos across various developmental stages, morphological qualities, and the day of blastulation? So this was a retrospective cohort study conducting single IVF lab of 1,500 single embryo transfers, 150 cleavage, and 1,300 blastocysts between January and December 2024. It's a lot. Okay, so the outcomes were comparable between a conventional 3-step protocol, thawing solution for 1 minute, dilution step for 2, and 3 washing solution for 3 minutes. A simplified protocol for 2 steps, thawing solution in 1 minute, and then a dilution step for 2 minutes, and then a 1-step, just a thawing solution for 1 minute. It's pretty quick. So for cleavage stage embryos, all protocols resulted in 100% survival and comparable ongoing pregnancy rates. You know what? I think that's pretty impressive, considering that for years now everyone's been doing quite a slow thawing process, but in reality, just 1 minute into thawing solution, then washing quickly into culture media. It's a pretty amazing. So the pregnancy rates, ongoing pregnancy rates for 11% for 3, 12% for 2, and 10.8% for 1. It's all pretty impressive. For blastocysts, the post-warming survival was for 3, 2, and 1, 199, 99.6. Ongoing pregnancy rate 47.7, 46.2, and 43.9. A p-value of 0.5. So there's obviously no difference. But the bottom line is 47 or 43 are probably not much. I'm sure it's just a figure of the data. That's what the probability says. But you would like it to have been 47 or 48 anyway. They were comparable amongst the 3 protocols, including when co-founders were considered. So the equivalence was observed consistently across all subgroups, including developmental stages for blastocysts, 43, 39, 33, expanded blastocysts, 49, 49, 49, and for poor grade, 27, 23, 23. So even with a poor grade blastocyst, where you think there may be all sorts of problems, the 1-step process delivered exactly the same outcome. And for day 5, 25, 52%, 52 and 50. And for day 6, 34, 28, 27. Actually, you know what? This is a pretty remarkable set of data. And you would have to be fairly confident that doing a 1-step process is probably going to deliver you equivalent rates. It's not going to be detrimental. So the conclusion, a simplified 1 or 2-step warming protocols are effective for vitrified human embryos regardless of developmental stage, morphological quality, and the day of blastulation. So this is some of the comments that the authors made. I'm just doing, if they're in italics, they're a direct quote. This unexpected advantage of one of one-step warming might be attributed to the reduced handling time and minimized exposure to suboptimal environmental conditions. The normal protocol takes about 13 minutes to complete all processes. During this period, the embryos need to be manipulated outside the incubator and are therefore exposed to various physical stresses such as changes in pH, oxygen, and light exposure. And they also go on to say, in particular, it's been suggested that manipulation of embryos at room temperature may affect embryo development. And there has been a paper recently, Yang in 2023, who demonstrated that embryos warmed at 37 for all processes had achieved higher pregnancy rates than embryos in which the warming process was carried out at room temperature. This suggests that even for short periods of time, manipulation of embryos under low temperature may cause adverse effects of embryos. So my comments are this. So I haven't done any vitrification for quite a few years now. Been out of IVF for a few years, but have a lot of experience in slow freezing and early vitrification, both the cleavage and blastocysts. So my comments are this. Previous studies suggest that sensitivity to osmotic stress may vary amongst species, with human embryos potentially far more tolerant than mouse embryos. Indeed, one-step warming protocol is already an established protocol in livestock species, including the cow, donkeys, and pigs, as a simplified embryo manipulation in the field conditions. So a lot of this work been done in human is actually all the hard work has been done in animal models for veterinary practice. These reports suggest that the change in osmotic pressure due to one-step warming is within a withstandable range for most human embryos. Any change that reduces the time embryos are out of culture media must be seen as a good change, and it appears reducing the time by 8 minutes is positive. It's also good that the vitrification system is under constant review. One problem we had with the slow freezing all those years ago was there was no further development. Everyone just followed the same process set up by Descartes in 84. Everyone keeps doing the same thing, which I think is counterproductive. With fewer steps, it lends itself to automation and fewer technical errors and lower staff variability. Although I think that we have to wait and see with that one. But I'd like to make one further point. That is, I think clinics need to make sure their staff are informed that they're doing a change in the thawing process just in case in the future there's some errors. I've had a couple of cases over the last 50 years of issues with thawing, and always informed consent has saved the day. So I'd like to make one point. I think couples need to be informed as that change and in fact and in the first instance, give their approval, possibly for another 12 months. And each clinic needs to confirm that the shorter protocol works in their laboratory with their staff, and documentation needs to be kept for 1 or 3-step warming cultures to confirm there is no loss in outcomes. And I think that needs to run for at least a year. And I think you do need to have a specific KPI to do that. And if so, then I think this is a advantage. So I'll leave it there. As you know, my name's James Danger. I've been an embryologist with my 50 years experience. I'm not a medical person, and this information is not medical advice, but it may help you in knowing what questions to ask about your treatment with your doctor, and maybe help in understanding any advice you receive. If you like what you're doing, press subscribe, press like, and tell everyone how good this program is. It's funded by my other program, which is my FIRDAID, which is an online EQA program at firdaid.com in andrology and embryology. And just saw the blurb on how good it is. Been going since 2002. So that program's been going for 25, almost 23 years, continuously amazing. Okay, I'd like to stop now. Thank you for your time. I know IVF is a personal journey that involves the action of many steps, techniques, ideas, staff, etc., and helps to understand all aspects of that journey. Hope this information is of value. Please tell others about the service and please subscribe. And at this point in time, I would like to stop and say good night.